pain, pleasure, no shame. If you like it weird, I'll like it strange. It's a fantasy. Hello and welcome back to another Tuesday Tea and Tarot Talk, the fourth and final Tuesday Tea and Tarot Talk in my fantasy series, where today we're going to be talking about pleasure, because pleasure leads to pain. To me, they're both the same. Except this time, passion, pain, and no shame have finally led us to pleasure. So yes, pleasure is going to be the topic for today's episode. And so I have accompanied a perfectly pleasant tea blend here. Give me 1 second. Of lavender, chamomile, I believe some wild orange leaves, some passion flower, and some red poppy. Still too hot, but it smells beautiful. I love chamomile. Like, chamomile is so calming. This is actually a sleep tea blend, so hopefully I don't fall asleep. But I find immense pleasure in rest and, just chilling out, being calm. So that's the energy I wanted to bring to today's video. So once again, we're using the Hermetic Tarot, and today we're going to be using it to talk about pleasure. How we can find pleasure maybe in the not so pleasurable times of our lives. All things pleasure. All things pleasure. Okay, let's just get right into it. Actually, no. I think I want to adjust the angle a little bit, because I think it's a little too... Okay, that feels better. Who knows? Okay, here we go. Okay, we've got 3 cards. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the 5 of Swords, the Lord of Defeat. Okay. And I guess this is kind of fitting. So we have here the Venus-ruled decan of Aquarius. So Venus is the planet of pleasure. And Aquarius is one of the 2 homes of Saturn. And Saturn is many things. Saturn is, the Lord of Time, also darkness, the end, the limit, death. And so I think this bottom card here is trying to help us serve, trying to serve as a reminder to try to find pleasure in the small things, in the little things, in everyday things, when we're faced with the great darkness that is existence. Sometimes we are going to be defeated. We are going to feel like we have failed. But being a 5, it is a turning point. It's time for a change. It's when some things have to go. Some things simply have not worked. And so the world is urging you to change. Okay, I'm going to take a sip of my tea before I get into the next 3 cards, but I think it's a little too hot. Oh, it's so good though. Oh my gosh, it's like so sweet. I love chamomile. Okay, of course, we have to have this card. The 2 of Cups. What is a more pleasurable experience than connection, than love? The Lord of Love. Once again, we have a Venus-ruled decan. We have the Venus-ruled decan of Cancer. And this is like opposite, sort of, to the Venus in Aquarius. Because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, whereas Cancer is ruled by the moon. And the moon is one of the lights. The sun and the moon are guiding lights. And Um, the moon and the sun are opposite to Saturn because, the sun and the moon bring us light, one during the day, during night, whereas Saturn always brings darkness. And so this is finding joy in the beautiful things, finding pleasure in connection, in togetherness, finding harmony. Like, I think something I feel when I see this card, this like overflowing of love, and I don't know, everything just looks so happy and pleasant and beautiful. Like, some of the imagery in this deck is very sharp, whereas all of the like lines in this image are very rounded. Like, even the water droplets are all rounded because it's very soft, it's very pleasant, it's very comforting, smooth. And that's what pleasure is. Pleasure is a feeling of comfort when things feel softened, when the sharp edges get softened. And sometimes that requires time. It takes time to, like, I just thought of like sea glass. When broken bottles end up in the water, they're sharp, they have jagged edges, but the repetition of like them, rubbing against the sand or like the water, I don't really know exactly how it happens. But over time, those sharp edges get softened down. And so finding pleasure is a constant thing. It's something we have to keep doing. Just like just like the opposite, just like we have to keep dealing with pain, we have to keep, finding pleasure in our everyday experiences. Okay. And then now we have the Four of Swords. I love that this card came out because it is called the Lord of Rest from Strife. And I mean, I talked a couple minutes ago, about how rest is one of my favorite forms of finding pleasure in life. But I love that this card is specifically rest from strife. So in life, we encounter strife. We, have conflicts. We have struggles. And we can't always take it on. Oh, the rain has started. Sometimes it feels like we can't take it on. And I think we have to let ourselves take a rest, even when it feels like there's no time to rest. That's probably the most important time to rest, is when, you feel like you might not have the time to do it. If you're feeling that, you're probably doing too much. You're probably overworking, stressing, like, anxious about something that has to get done, or something of the sorts. And in those moments is when we need to find the most relief, the most pleasure, the most calm, because we can't really function when our brain is all anxiety and spiraling. Like, we're not able to really focus and get things done. So I also want to mention that this is the Jupiter ruled, you can barely see it here, but there's Jupiter in the tiny handle of this sword here, and then there's Libra making up the, I don't really know what it's called, but the part of a sword that like comes right before the blade where it kind of sticks out. That's the sign of Libra. So this is the Jupiter ruled decan of Libra. Jupiter is a benefic planet. It is a good doer. It is something that brings joy, something that brings growth, expansion. It brings harmony. It brings connection, just like Venus does. The benefics are these planets that bring benefits, good things to life. And being in Venus's home of Libra, I feel like the Jupiter ruled decan of Libra is finally being able to just accept all the wonderful things that life has. Like Libra is the start of the fall, and the fall is when we get our harvest from, all of the growth that has happened in, like the growing season. So yeah, that is pleasure. We get to finally rest from all the strife, all the work we've been putting in. We can finally just reap the rewards. Okay, and last but not least of the 3 cards that came out is the Ace of Cups. The Lord of the Root of the Powers of Water. I love water. I love tea. You know, tea is flavored water. And water is incredibly powerful. I've talked about it before. And I'll talk about it again. I don't remember when I talked about it, but I talked about how water... Oh wait, I think it was when I saw the Knight of Cups. I talked about how water can cause erosion. Like over time, the repetition of water, just like I was talking about the sea glass. Water, it may seem soft, but it can cause real change, great change, given time. And I think that's what pleasure is. Pleasure, it may seem like you might not be doing much if you're resting. You know, it may seem like you're in a period of inactivity. So our capitalistic society may have taught us that if we're not doing something, it's not good, it's not beneficial. But rest is incredibly powerful, incredibly beneficial. Finding pleasure, it heals parts of you. It smooths things over. It makes profound changes in our life, and we have to prioritize our pleasure, our rest, our calm. Okay, I'm going to see if any more cards want to come out for this reading on pleasure. Pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. Okay, we've got 3 more. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Lord of Material Gain, which is the 9 of Pentacles, the Venus-ruled decan of Virgo. And this kind of like reminds me of that what I was talking about with like Libra, and like when I was talking about the 4 of Swords, the Jupiter-ruled decan of Libra, which I believe, is that the first? Let me think. No, I think that's like the second decan, but it doesn't matter. Because this is the last decan of Virgo. So this is right before the fall. And so this is the material gain that I was talking about. This is when everything's finally coming, like the flowers are finally opening, you know, like our fruits are finally ready to be harvested. Like you can see all these beautiful flowers there. So if you're not feeling the pleasure, the benefits, just give it some time, because it takes time for things to grow. Okay, let me grab these last 3 cards. And I saw the first one, and that's why I'm smiling. It's the moon. I love the moon. Luna amor. The ruler of flux and reflux. Okay, so this sort of ties in to what I was saying. Is like sometimes you have to wait. You know, sometimes you're in a period of high energy, and sometimes you're in a period of low energy. You know, the full moon versus the new moon. The moon is constantly flowing, constantly changing. We are constantly flowing, constantly changing. And so sometimes we are going to be in periods of rest. And sometimes we're going to have a lot of pleasure, a lot of pleasurable things in our life, but sometimes it'll be the opposite. We won't. But the moon is a reminder that things are always changing. So, you know, the sun will come out again tomorrow. Like, things will continue to change for you. And so if you don't like something, you can change it. You can make change in your life. Okay, we've got a lot of cups, and it makes sense. We've got the 3 of cups. So we have 2, 1, and 3. 1, 2, 3. So the Lord of Abundance. What's a more pleasurable thing than abundance? Wow. And this one, it's like a little calmer than the 2. Like the flow of the water. Like as you can see in the 2, The water is like splashing out. And I feel like that's what ties it to love. Love is like such a profound, such a strong emotion. Sorry if the rain's getting a little loud. That it's almost like a burst of energy. Whereas abundance, well, it seems like it's a lot. It really means enough, right? When there's like an abundant harvest, there's enough to share with others. And so it's not spilling over. It's just like the perfect amount to flow right down the sides of this card and create this pool of abundance, of loveliness. Okay, and last but certainly not least, we have the Lord of Victory. Tons of pleasurable things. Victory! Woohoo! We won. The Jupiter ruled decan of Leo. Interesting. So we have a lot of like water, wet, cups, Cancer energy here. But now we have this fire sign. We've got a Wands card. But also Leo is a fire sign. And how do I want to relate this to pleasure? Okay, this is kind of random. But the heat of my tea made me think of this. So I love tea, as you can see. But to make tea, you have to heat water. You have to bring opposite forces together. And the heat of the water is able to extract the, flavors and the healing compounds and chemicals or whatever, makes up the ingredients in your tea. And so to make this beautiful, pleasurable tea drinking experience, you need a little bit of both. You need the water and the fire. You need the light and the dark. You need to combine opposites. Life is about juxtaposition. It's about being able to integrate opposites because we're constantly surrounded by seemingly opposite things. And so we have to be able to put it all together. So I hope you enjoyed today's Tuesday Tea and Tarot Talk. And yeah, I think for the next Tuesday Tea and Tarot Talk, I'm going to be focusing in on one card. But I'm going to be using all the decks I have here with me. I'm missing one deck. I left one deck at home, which is the Solabusca Tarot, which I kind of have been missing. But anyways, I'm going to be focusing on one card in the next Tuesday Tea and Tarot Talk, so I won't just be using this deck. But stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for, Season 2. I'm crazy. Season 2 of my Wednesday Words of Wisdom videos are going to be hopefully starting next week. Maybe this week. We'll see. Depends on how things go tomorrow. But I'm going to be reading a new book, which I'm very excited for. So stay tuned for that, and you will see me in the next one.